Welcome to Go Learning Point tutorial. So in our last session we discussed about what is CTE, that is common table expression in Oracle, and what is the with clause and how with clause helps in simplifying the complex SQL. So you can just go through these videos and you can find those videos in my SQL playlist in my YouTube channel. And in today's session we will be discussing about the few of the enhancements those were done as a part of Oracle 12c or higher version while using the with clause in your SQL query. So the first enhancement that was done as a part of with clause is we can use functions and procedures within the with clause statement. Okay, and the second one was earlier this was not possible to use with clause inside the PL SQL block directly, so we can now have that functionality added with the with clause that we can use that statement inside the PL SQL block as well. Okay, now there is another hint that we have as a part of Oracle 12c or higher version is with PL SQL Hint. So we will discuss about all three enhancements in detail. So first of all, we'll discuss about the functions within the with clause. So consider a situation that why do we need functions? So basically, if you want to accomplish some task repeatedly, or if you want to accomplish some task or write a query that cannot be done using a standard query, so that for that purpose we'll be writing a PL SQL block that is my functions using create or replace function and function name, and inside that you'll be writing the function body and everything, right? So that object will actually be created inside your Oracle database or any database, right? So that is kind of a storage will be required for that particular function, and the maintenance will also be required, right? Every time you'll need to, if there are any dependent objects in that function, so every time you make any changes you'll have to recompile those objects as well, right? So that kind of maintenance work was also there, and the functions creation will also be there, and the storage space will also be there, right? So now consider a situation that you need something, the some result set only for your query and not for the global purpose. So if you require something, the some result set for your global purpose, and you want to use that particular thing at multiple places, then you will definitely go for the functions, the standard functions that we have. But if that is the requirement that you want to use that result set only in your query, then you can definitely go for with clause functions functionality that we have added in Oracle 12c or higher version, right? So we'll discuss about this practically, how we actually write a functions inside the with clause. So this is the simple example where I have created a function within the with clause statement, and what I've done here that I have created a function SumofNumbers. I'm calculating the sum of two numbers here, so I have created a function just right after the with keyword, and just you have to write function and the function name and the parameters. So I have passed two parameters here, number 1 and number 2, and I'll be returning the sum of these two numbers. So I'll be putting at return number is, and then I have a return statement that is going to return the sum of the numbers that I have passed at runtime. Okay, now once this function definition ends here, I'll be using the query with the final query where I'll be using whatever I have written in the CTE clause, right? So here I'll be calling that particular function. I'm passing those parameters, and then I'll be using from dual table. So what this is going to do is this will call this SumofNumbers function and will return the sum of those two numbers that I have passed, right? So here I have passed 12 and 30, so I'll be getting 42 as a result after executing this with a statement. Okay, so let's see how what will be the result after executing this particular statement where I have created a function body inside the with clause. So if you see, I've got the result as 42. Let's change the parameter and try to execute it one more time. So if you see, I have got the sum of these two numbers, right? So what is the advantage here is you need not to create a function body separately. You need not to maintain it separately. Okay, so you'll be creating it only for your query. So in that case, you will definitely go for a with clause, right? Because here the sum of numbers will be used only by my query. Okay, so I'll be putting that function definition inside the with clause only. So let's check out some more examples how we can create this function body inside the with clause. Now suppose I have this table. Okay, so inside this I have list of employees, the department IDs assigned to them, and the salaries of individual employees, right? So what I want to know, what I want to get from this particular result is the average salary we have in each department. Okay, so if I write a simple query, what I would be doing is select department ID and the average salary, and this is the round function I have used. Average salary from employee, the table name, and the group by department ID and order by department ID. So this is going to give me the average salary in each of the department, right? So let's try to execute it. Okay, so I have got the department numbers here and the average salary in each of the department. Now consider the situation that I want to do this result set every time in my SQL query. So what I'll be doing, I'll be writing a with clause and I'll be putting the subquery, right? Now consider a situation that instead of a subquery, I can use functions now, right? So if I want to do the same thing, that is the department wise average salary, and I want to create a function for that, and then I'll be using that particular result set within my main query, right? So how that will be done? So for that I need to write a simple with clause. Inside that I need to write a functions that will accept the department IDs, and then will calculate the average salary and will return that average salary to the final query. So how that will be done? So this is how we would be doing it through with clause. So what I have done here, just right after the with keyword, I have created a function body which is starting from here and ending here, and this is my final query, right, where I'll be actually calling this particular function to return the salary, average salary in each of the department. So what I've done here, I have created an average salary function where I'm passing a department ID, and then the return would be a number, and inside this I have declared a variable that where I'll be calculating the average salary for each of the department, right? Now inside the begin clause, what I have done, I am calculating the average salary into this for whatever the department ID I have got in this as a parameter, right? So from the table, and where department ID equal to my parameter ID, right? That is my department ID, and then I'm returning this average salary to my final query. So in the final query, what will happen is I'm just calling this particular function. I'm passing the department ID, all the department ID from the employees table. So the final query will actually pass the department IDs one by one, and then my function will return the average salary one by one to the final query. Okay, now let's just try to execute this and see what result we'll get from this with clause. So if you see, I have got the same result, the department IDs and the average salary in each of the department. So these are some examples where you can actually define functions inside the with clause, and you can even define procedures inside the with clause. It's just that you'll be creating a with clause, and just right after the with clause you'll be creating a procedure in the similar way that we have created function here, and that procedure you'll have to invoke inside the function, right? Inside the function body. So let's say if you want to get some output from the procedure, and then that output will be used inside the function, and then that function will be used in my final query. So in that way you can use both functions and procedures inside the with clause. Okay, so now we'll see the second enhancement that we have is the SQL support of with clause statement. Now here to show how the SQL support we have for the with clause, I'll be using the same with statement that we have used at the first place for calculating the sum of two numbers. So what I have done here, I have just used a SQL where I will be putting that particular with clause inside this SQL variable, and here I'll be just opening the cursor for this particular SQL, and whatever the data we'll get from here, we'll fetch it into this L value variable, and then that will be displayed using dbms output line. Right. So earlier, before Oracle 12c, this was not possible, and Now after Oracle 12c or in Oracle 12c or higher version, this was possible that we will be having a PL SQL support using with clause. So let's just try to execute this and if we get the desired result or not. So if you see, I have passed here the 1230 and it has printed result as 42 of L value, right? Now if I just change the parameters 112 and 30 and let's just try to execute it one more time. So we have got the result here. So you can just use all these enhancements as per your requirement. Because I have used simple example just to show that how we'll be using all these functionalities within the with clause or with the statement. Now the next enhancements that we have is with PL SQL Hint. So if it's a hint, then it will be used in after the with statement, like we used to do after select keyword, right? Now it will be used after with keyword. Okay, why this is there? Because if suppose consider a situation that you have a subquery and then from that subquery you want to fetch the result in outer query, right? So that is kind of a correlation between the subquery and the outer query. Okay, so if I want to do if I want to calculate something using with clause and then in the outer query I want to select everything from with clause. Now consider a situation, I'm going to show you one of the example that this is my with clause, and in this what I'm doing, I have used a function that is increased salary and I'm passing salary here, and that is going to add 10,000 to that salary, whatever the input I have got from the program, right? So if I just execute this particular statement, so what I'm doing, whatever the input, whatever the result I'll get from this, I'm selecting it in outer query. So let's just try to execute it if it works or not. So if you see, I have got multiple errors here, unknown command and the SQL command not properly ended, and there are some other error and warnings as well, right? Now to accomplish this, because this was not supported in Oracle 11G or any version below the Oracle 12C, but in Oracle 12C we have with PL SQL Hint that we can use to fulfill our purpose. So let's just try to use that with PL SQL Hint here. So what I'll be doing, I'll just put it here after the select with PL SQL, and now this query is not going to give me any error. Okay, let's just try to execute this now. So if you see, I've got the desired result, right? So I've got all the salaries from employee table, and this function has added 10,000 to all the salaries, right? So let me just show you what I have in employee table. So if you see, I have this 12,000, I have added 10,000, it has become 22,000. Similarly, it has added 10,000 to all the salaries for all the employees. Okay. So similarly, you can use this with PL SQL enhancement for your project requirement, and these are some enhancements that we have discussed. What I'm going to do, I'm going to paste all these things in the video description link. And there's one more thing that we forgot to discuss is while creating these functions, let me just paste one of the function example from here, and so we also have one more concept in Oracle, that is deterministic functions. So we are going to discuss that particular function or concept in detail in our later sessions. For now, you just need to understand that deterministic function is there. It's just when you have the same number of input values in the functions and you're getting the same kind of output, then you can use deterministic in your function declaration or function definition. So that what Oracle will do, if it will find the deterministic keyword mentioned in your function and you're getting the same number of same kind of input that is already executed earlier, it is going to use the same compilation logs. So it will not execute that particular function again. Okay, so that's the main reason. That is one of the example of improving your performance of your query. So you can use that deterministic function inside the with clause as well. So how that will be? So you just need to mention deterministic here. Now let's just try to execute this. So this will also work, right? So you can use deterministic also while defining functions in your with clause. So these are some points that we have in with clause enhancement, and I'm going to paste all these things in the video description link. And thanks for watching my tutorial, and like, share and subscribe to get more updates.